So, in a roller coaster of good and bad news for Wizards, we have learned that while Hasbro's quarter one earnings are down almost 24%, Wizards continues to be the moneymaker, really pulling in major profits from Magic the Gathering and its various digital licenses. Despite this, however, arena use and revenue is down from this time last year. Hasbro says they're shifting strategy to help Arena. But what does this mean for us here at the Rebellion, being an organization dead set on reviving and highlighting the Magic competitive scene, primarily, actually, through the use of Arena? Stick around and find out. Later on, we'll actually have an interview, as promised last week, with another ally of the Rebellion, MTG Brewlab. The Best of One Brewmaster is here to tell us about his mindset around content creation and more. I'm here with Athena the Bun. This is Rebelcast episode 38. Let's get right into it. First, though, our permanent segment, Rebel Informer. Now, we actually got to sit down with the Discord, watch Pro Tour Thunder Junction. Athena, take it away. What were some of the takeaways from what we saw day one, and we're almost done with day two now, but part of day two?
So from my day one watching it, the biggest point that I had as someone who plays a lot of blue-white control is that these blue-white control players keep losing the Esper matchup because they just don't have any win conditions in their main deck. And even in their sideboard, they're like forgoing things like Seed Shark for the sake of Tidebinders. And they get into these Esper matchups where Esper lands like one Virtue and they just suddenly can't keep anymore. And they have no way to slam the door shut. So I don't know. I mean, it's working to some success. I know it looks like we're going to have an Azorius control player in the top 8 with Yuta. Mm-hmm. But his list is like 8 2-mana counter spells or something. It's got like Phantom Interference, Make Disappear, and No More Lies. Yeah, I just think these blue-white control decks just need more win conditions or any win conditions. I run main deck Whale and then sideboard Ezram and Seed Shark for the Esper matchup because you need stuff that like fights them on the board. You can't just fight them in card advantage forever. You'll just lose.
Yeah, relying on Wandering Emperor in the past, like the deck used to, doesn't seem to be working for it. In particular, though, the Temur Analyst matchup. How do you feel about Azorius control in that? Do you think this is more true because of that Temur Analyst matchup? How can it shore up there?
Well, so in the tournament, as of right now, we're talking, I think it's like 50-50 now in like the tournament matchup. I think they're on 50% win rate against each other.
Okay.
I actually like the matchup post Rest in Peace. As long as you like don't play it like an idiot. I've seen a lot of like blue-white control players just like not kill the early Analyst or Nissa, trying to just like, oh, well, they can do their thing, I'll do my thing, I'll win. No, you kind of have to play like a tempo deck. And if you have 7 to 8 main board counter spells, you can do that. You just counter the 4 board wipes and you're pretty golden, just, but you have to have a win condition in your deck to do that, right? So yep. You can't do that with Wandering Emperor tokens.
Makes a lot of sense. What else you got for us?
Well, the Esper builds are varying a ton. We've got mostly two different versions with, I call it the single version, which is the one without wedding announcement, and the married version, the one that's announcing its wedding. The married version is doing worse in the head-to-head. Like whenever they've played head-to-head, the one without wedding announcement is winning more. But the wedding announcement versions seem to be winning more often in general, which is probably the correct version. I definitely think it is a little bit too susceptible to board wipes when you go the non-wedding version. Okay. Yeah, like one lockdown kills I think there's 14 lockdown targets in the non-wedding version.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. I didn't think about wedding announcement. Now, what made you think about wedding announcement versus non-wedding announcement? Is that really like the dividing line between Esper builds?
That's really what looks like it. I mean, it's really like it's wedding announcement versus Duelist of the Mind.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, but not all of the non-wedding decks are using Duelist, and some of the wedding decks are still using Duelist. So it's really just like the biggest differentiating factor for me is just whether or not they have wedding announcement, because that just gives you so much ability to grind.
Okay.
Yeah.
That does make a lot of sense. That tracks.
Mm.
Okay. Now, one card I want to hear your take on this. People are talking about good old Costic Bronco. What's going on with that card? Why are people talking about it?
All right, I want to start by saying like everyone in the Rebellion was super low on this card when we saw it. We're like, it's a 2/2. It can't attack into anything. We looked at like that and Seraphic Steed as the other like 2/2, two
Yeah.
mana 2/2 mount. And we're like, Seraphic Steed just looks better in every way because it's like 2/2 first like life link. Like, yeah, there's a high saddle cost, but you're in the colors to hit that saddle cost. Like Bronco, like a lot of your follow up in black decks is not 3 power. Like Preacher or Rafine are like the premier ones. So we weren't ready to see Golgari take Costic Bronco and just smash people with it. Turns out Golgari has a lot of 3 power 3 drops that work really well with it. And there's also like the Orzhov deck. It's like a little, I think it's a little gimmicky, but I don't know. It is winning games. So maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think it's more surprising people than it is like actually a like top tier deck.
Yeah.
It's trying to use Insatiable Avarice to tutor a Shadow of Mortality on top of your deck, which is a 15 cost creature, and then you saddle the Bronco and swing. You reveal it, and it does 15 damage to your opponent on the spot.
Okay.
It kind of reminds me of Greasefang and Pioneer, where it's like, that's really cool. but that doesn't win the game. So
it's not an OTK. Yeah,
it's like you did all this setup, like the Insatiable Avarice, the Bronco, the thing to saddle the Bronco, and you did 15 damage. Like it's just so much setup in order to do it.
Yeah, that's the combo deck. It's very interesting. I did like how powerful the shell was just kind of by itself. It didn't necessarily rely on the combo, but yeah, the combo, if it doesn't kill, it's not that attractive to build for me as a combo deck.
So I tried a game of that deck, and the very first game I went Costic Bronco on 2. Turn 3, I did not play a creature right away. I attacked first because I was against blue-white control. I attacked first and revealed my own Shadow of Mortality and did 15 damage to myself. Which already off of that, I'm like, I hate this deck. This is not where I want to be. But the shell around it is good. I mean, you're basically playing a worse version of Esper, though, right? Because you're playing you're playing 2 of the 3 colors of Esper, but you're not playing Rafine. You're playing stuff like Peacekeeper, which is I don't know. Is anyone playing Peacekeeper? Yeah.
Yeah, it is odd. It is an odd shell. We'll see if it hangs around past this weekend.
Right.
Yeah, that's wild. But yeah, I think overall, right, the deck that I hate the most, Temur Analyst, still doing really well in terms of its win-loss rate. Is that still true after, what are we, 15 rounds now?
Yeah, so I think it's the second highest win rate deck right now. Okay. I think because we were talking out of like the top like 8 decks that were brought. We were talking about in the Discord. It's like a 60-something% win rate. That being said, like weren't all of us like on the train of like, yeah, Analyst is dead. Take all your Rest in Pieces out of your sideboard. Take all your Hearses out of your sideboard. No one's playing this anymore, right? Yeah. But I think because the format was so new compared to when this Pro Tour happened, people that were whatever people were practicing before OTJ came out, I'm pretty sure they just played them here. That's why you see so much of the same Esper build, right? Even though it's not really doing that well this tournament in terms of like overall win rate.
Yeah, I think Esper got overplayed, and I think overall, actually, I guess even if it does win the final, it does it through sheer numbers. It's not. I think its stock value slightly goes down after this, even though it might win. Like that's really weird to say.
Well, it's also like when you have a major tournament like this, and everyone knows what the top deck is. Everyone's just trying to beat it, right? If you look at the last like Pioneer, like big Pioneer tournament, I think it was Pro Tour, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Like everyone was like, yeah, the best deck's Azorius Control. And people were like, okay, what beats Azorius Control? And just everyone brought that. Heroic came out in huge numbers. The Vampires deck emerged. Like these are the decks that beat Control. So that's the first thing people went to. And we kind of see the same thing here, right? Yeah. 4-color Legends is like 50% or worse against every deck in this tournament, except it just like beats the hell out of Esper. Yeah, same with like Domain's kind of a similar story. Like it's losing to Analyst, it's losing to, it's like 50-50 against pretty much every other deck, except maybe Convoke.
Yeah.
And then it just beats up on Esper.
Yep. So yeah. And that's why it's there. Yeah. That's interesting. Well, thank you, Athena. I always learn something new whenever, I listen to your observations, your data analysis. I look forward to doing this in the future and keeping this a permanent segment when we have, major events like the Pro Tour, Worlds, that kind of thing. It'd be good to have somebody on board with us just analyzing the win rates and pointing things out.
Thank you.
That's really cool. But with that, let's turn now to the future of the digital platform that we really make most of our content on. MTG Arena. We announced at the top of the show about the recent earnings reports, pointing to a decline in the user base for Arena Q1 of this year. The recent decline attributed in the article to the lack of a remastered set release at this time of the year, unlike last year's Shadows over Innistrad. So, what's going to happen to Arena? Along with some revamping of the overall client, which it badly needs, let's be honest. It has been announced from the top a shift in focus to enabling more casual play, releasing more collectible products on the platform. This is the new strategy from Wizards. So let's take a look at a brief portion of the article from Star City Games. We'll leave a link in the description to the piece for all of you to go check out. According to this report, the Wizards of the Coast digital gaming performance overall 7% total revenue growth. It's a positive year. Wizards Tabletop is up 3%. Digital game licensing, including, things like Baldur's Gate, is a huge chunk of that, 7%. Digital games performance, however, is down 3%. And so you got to think that's MTGO, that's MTG Arena. So that's where we're getting this from. MTG Arena, in the articles, it quotes, down a bit in Q1, but Cox, who is the CEO, Chris Cox, attributed that to the client not having a remastered set like it did last year. And then it continues, barring that discrepancy, Arena would have been roughly in line with the overall Magic property. Notably, Cox mentions that Hasbro has a multi-year plan to invest in the areas of social-based play collectability in the hopes to refresh the platform. Here's the direct quote. We continue to invest in Arena. We continue to mimic all the card sets that are inside of it. We are also investing over the long term to refresh the platform. So you will be hearing more about that over the coming next couple of years. It will be a long-term digital project. When you look at Magic and where our growth has been, a lot of that growth has been in social-based play like Commander and in collectability. So, certainly, I think that's a typo there. We will be investing in those areas on the digital platform over the long term. So, based on this statement right here, here's the rough. My immediate knee-jerk reaction was, are we going to get more Secret Lair EDH-style product in Arena, along with this push for a 4-player mode? What does this mean? The immediate thing I thought of, what does this mean for the promise of Pioneer? Last year, they promised us that we would have Pioneer by this year's end, fully on Arena. Athena, I want to hear what you think. What do you think about my concerns and just the overall future of Arena?
So back in like 2015, 2016, Riot Games did something similar with League of Legends, where they just straight up revamped the entire client. When it first came out, it was a piece of shit. It was the worst revamped client ever. But over time, they ended up fixing it, and now it's like better than it was before, by a pretty large margin. And I think we're probably going to see something similar. The revamp is going to happen. There's probably going to be a ton of bugs with it. Everyone's going to hate it. And then it's just going to enable better things. I mean, we've seen how terribly buggy Arena is, right? It feels like every single patch, it's like, oh, hey guys, we released Outlaws at Thunder Junction. By the way, sideboarding doesn't work anymore. Oh, hey guys, we fixed the sideboard bug, except now there's a new one where it just spawns 50 copies of a card in your sideboard if you try to move it around. There's still the bug where your buttons turn white at the top of the screen. The new bug that came out in Outlaws that I don't really see many people talking about. I have a widescreen monitor. It keeps changing my resolution and exiting full screen like every couple of seconds while not in an actual game. And then between games, it does the same thing. It just like changes my resolution and then goes back to like minimize or not minimized, but it goes back to non-full screen. And it's super annoying to try to deal with. But these kind of bugs are the kind of things that like an Arena revamp is going to fix, right? Even if it introduces new ones at first, even if it's not successful at first, like if they're saying they're going to invest in Arena for this sort of thing, I believe them. I have no reason to think like they're going to like invest in it to like give us a worse version of what it is now and then leave it alone. Like they're definitely gonna fix it if it gets worse. Yeah, and then
so that's one side of it, right? That's the positive for me. Mm-hmm. It does need a revamp. Yeah, I'm all on board for that. Let's get to the stickier side of things. What does this mean? This push for casual, for more collectability. Collectability is such a loaded phrase, right? Because it makes me think about product overload. Some of the things that the community have expressed like concerns over, not just competitive, but casual too. What does this mean? Are they just going to try to like microtransaction us to death? What's going on here?
I'll be honest. I'm actually all for it. I know that's probably like a hot take. I am all for this.
I want to hear it.
Yeah, as someone who has no interest in Commander, no interest in these casual formats, one, it's going to bring more people to Arena, which is just by that nature going to give them more incentive to work on Arena more. It's going to be a really good gateway for a lot of these casual Commander players to like see Standard and Pioneer and be like, hey, I've collected a bunch of cards on Arena for these formats. Why don't I try it out, right? And we're going to get a bunch more people like that. The third thing is this is the kind of change that encourages people spending a bunch of money to collect all the cards that they want. The more money that's spent on Arena, the more money they're going to put back into Arena. Even if like Standard or Pioneer or whatever doesn't make as much money as Commander, they can use the extra money they make off of the Commander products to still help the competitive scene, right? And you see that with other games too. Most games, the casual scene is so much bigger than the competitive scene. And so what these companies will do is they'll just use the extra money they get from like the whales playing in the casual scene to fund the competitive scene. That happens a lot in games. So that's what I'm also expecting out of this. I'm 100% for all of this. Even if it delays Pioneer, I'm all for it.
That last part bit me, but I'm actually kind of starting to understand that side of the argument. I think you've expressed it well here. The idea that, of course, we can fund competitive through casual play. If casual is going to be more popular and where the whales are, to be frank, then it makes sense. It makes sense to do that. You coming from just a general competitive gaming perspective, League of Legends, you can kind of see from the outside how that would apply here. And I actually agree with you. My concern, though, is as an entrenched like MTG player, right? I've been like socially engineered to think very negatively and cynically about this because let's be frank. Let's be frank though, for real. I really hope it does work out like everybody's describing to me. But I come from, and this sucks so bad. It sucks so bad because it's a totally different scene when MTG competitive first started. When MTG first started, the promise of being on the big global stage, the promise of becoming a pro tour competitor, all those sorts of things were like, that was the carrot on the stick. So it's like, it's definitely a boomer moment for me and people like me in the dark stream when we have to cope, so to speak, with the idea that, we're less than 50% of the community. and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Most people actually play both, like I've said in the past. We'll see what happens because I'm worried that they're not going to invest directly enough in competitive. It makes sense for them to, right? Because it is a huge moneymaker. Having these big events, these big cons where you have the competition worlds going on right next to, cosplay, different events, artist booths. I like that kind of culture. I think that's good for the game. So both can definitely coexist. I do believe both can definitely coexist, so long as we don't think of it as this zero sum sort of thing, and we're not tempted to just give into our knee jerk reactions. And I think it can work, but I'm uh I'm hopefully cynical, if that makes any sense.
Oh man, I'm just hopeful. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
I have seen I have been so League of Legends has been around since like what 2009. I played it
Hmm.
from like 2012 to 2021.
Hmm.
I've seen that game at its worst, and I remember what my opinions of Riot Games were at the time. And the
Yeah.
way that they like changed my opinion on them really drastically through my time of playing the game and watching how they changed it for the better,
Hmm.
even through the rough patches. Like, yeah, I don't play the game anymore because I just don't like the direction the game has gone as like an overall like product. But I have nothing but respect for like how Riot Games has handled League of Legends and their breakout into like the gaming industry with other games too, like Valorant. So
Yeah.
yeah, no,
The,
I have faith. I have faith.
the spectacle definitely plays a role in both of those scenes, right? The big events, the people on the stage, the casting, the production quality that goes into showing those events off. I think in both of those, in most esports, it's all about the spectacle. And if as much as they're investing in the spectacle, like that gives me a little bit of faith that they care about the competitive scene. But we'll see. Regardless, we're fully invested as one of those competitive organizations hoping to create a team. Uh, we make a lot of content on Arena. We're invested in Arena. We want to run our own in-house events on Arena in the future. Hopefully, I'll be able to reveal more about that as we get closer to it. But for now, suffice it to say, we're all very excited at the Rebellion projects we've been working on this year to highlight the competitive community, and Arena is a big part of that. Is it zero sum between competitive and casual when it comes to Magic the Gathering? I actually hope not. When it comes to Wizards, especially their design decisions, I hope that they can design with both in mind as we get into newer sets, as standard rotates too, right? They've been doing such a good job with recent standard sets, in my opinion. But
No, just give it time. Give it time. I know everyone wants to be up in arms about Arena and like the chance of like missing full Pioneer on Arena.
yeah,
Um, but I think this just makes if there's any problems with like bringing Pioneer to Arena, which I imagine there are with certain things like coding Cipher on hidden strings,
yeah,
um, like this will just make the process smoother when it finally does happen. So yeah, I will take a delayed Pioneer with way less bugs and an overall better client than pushing Pioneer, getting like a hidden strings that doesn't work or some other thing that just like doesn't work properly,
yeah.
and then basically not be able to play it anyways or having a diminished experience. So I am an advocate of waiting and biding our time, or having them bide their time until the time is right to release all this stuff, even if it
Yeah,
is delayed.
I'm with you. Till then, we'll keep covering standard and bits of explorer when we can, when it's relevant for competitive season. We'll do what we can here through Rebellion. So, in any case, let's move on to final segment here. Last week, I got to sit down with Ace MTG, talk about his content. If you missed out on that, go check out last week's episode. I really enjoyed doing those sorts of interviews. I think that interview really revealed just how much of a positive force he tries to be for Magic in general, right? He's focused on best of one content, but nonetheless, he's hype about best of three, hype about competitive. This week, I wanted to further that conversation and show off an interview that I did in recent days with MTG Brewlab. Brewlab's an ally of the Rebellion. We follow each other on YouTube. We both participate in Ace's streamer Kumite. So hear what Brewlab has to say about content, his excitement for Thunder Junction Standard in particular. Here's that interview. All right, so I'm here, Brewlab. I'm so excited to finally meet you. We were just saying a second ago how surreal it is to finally get to talk face to face. I watched some of your videos. I know that you've watched some of mine, some of ours on the Rebellion. So it's so awesome to finally sit down and just ask you some questions. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for asking. Yeah, it is always a little bit interesting when you feel like you have a relationship with somebody because we're always liking each other's things and commenting, but then to actually talk to you and see your face, it's great. So thanks for having me
Absolutely.
on.
Absolutely. Love having you on. So let's go ahead and start right away with what I call the content creator story. Go ahead and give us yours. How did you get started making content, especially with Magic?
Well, it's a pretty simple one, really. I had a fantastic job. Everything was going well, and then
Hmm.
COVID hit.
Oh yeah.
And around that same time, I started getting back into Magic, and then because I couldn't go to the local gaming stores, I found out about Arena and hook, line, and sinker. It was like I've got all day sitting around doing nothing in lockdown. Let's get back into my favorite card game. I used to play when I was a little kid with my brother. So
Okay. Very good.
then the content came kind of after that. It was just my wife managed to still work online, but my job
Mhm.
is like in person. I work at a
Ah.
hotel, so of course tourism during COVID just went to zero. So I was like,
Mhm.
let's see if I can make this thing work, make a little bit of money off of it. Of course, it turned out to be a lot harder than I thought it was, but I
Oh
still
yeah.
really enjoyed it. It's fun.
Well, good to hear. Good to hear that you're positive about it. So many years in. How long have you been doing it?
I want to say, so wait, COVID was 2021. So yeah, like
Mhm.
early 22, early
Okay.
22, something like that.
Okay. All right. All right. So obviously, we've all watched some of the big names. We've all talked about them. What are some of the content creators in Magic that you've seen, you've watched? What would you say is your favorite?
At the very beginning, when I was just getting into it and kind of figuring out Arena, before making content, I was a lot into Hello Good Game just because he was very friendly,
Mhm.
very, I got in chat with him on Discord and he was responding to my answers, I mean, to my questions, and just a very friendly and like open to discussion kind of a guy. So that was my first. But then, of course, as I got really into Arena, CGB,
Of
the
course,
and there was this guy. I mean, he's still around. I think it's Black Magic, something like that.
Mono Black
The
Magic. Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah. I
Jank
like him.
Lord.
Yeah. 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 That's a fun guy to watch. Yeah, I think he's one that inspired me to make content. So yeah, that's really cool. Oh yeah. So
Absolutely.
you did mention that you played Magic with your brother. When did you start playing actual like Magic as a kid? How did you get started playing?
It was just I went to a real hippie school, and of course, like Dungeons and Dragons, Magic was like straight away. I must have been like 7, 8 years old.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
I started to really have like a trade binder and go to the
Yeah.
LGS like every weekend from around 94, 95. So like early days, Tempest Mirage,
Oh man.
and some of the best memories of my life. Just being such a young kid, but my mum would just drop us off at the gaming store with little pocket money in the back pocket, and
Yeah.
clever mum, there goes my kids for the whole Saturday, Sunday. I don't have to deal with them. They're in a safe place,
Exactly.
surrounded by nerds.
Yeah. Yeah. I had very
Yeah,
similar experience myself growing up. So yeah, I totally get that. Man, that's awesome to hear though. Look, so you're kind of a veteran in Magic. You bring that to the table when it comes to brewing, I assume, and from the videos that I've seen, from
thank
some
you.
of the ideas that you have. Uh, Lately, we've been brewing a lot in standard. Standard's become a very strong format lately. With certain set releases recently, especially. What are your feelings on standard, and how excited are you about that format?
It is and always has been my bread and butter. I absolutely love it, and even when it's bad, I still love it
Yeah,
because of the rotation. It's the only one that stays a bit fresher. I feel
yeah,
like there's always a little bit more movement. Some of the Eternal formats, they just occasionally something really strong turns up, and it just becomes a replacement of one slot in a pre-existing deck. And yeah, there's the occasional new thing, like now with Rakdos vampires and whatnot, but generally speaking, they kind of stay the same. And it's one of the reasons why I'm a bit bummed about this new rotation system, because it means that that change has slowed down a little. Regardless, it's still the only one that feels fresh, and there's a bit more action. And I will be a standard mage forever, I think.
I'm with you on that one.
I wanted to pick your brain, just because I know I'd have to just quickly Google it, but I think the first set that will have been designed with the new 3 rotation in mind is going to be Bloomborough, or am I wrong?
You are correct.
So, that's when we'll really get to be able to tell, because then rotation is going to happen shortly after that, and it'll be interesting to see if they adapt to this new thing by, turning down the power level a little bit.
I agree. I think certain archetypes are a little too OP right now, but that's just me. Those are hot takes. I can save that for another time. But speaking of recent sets, so Thunder Junction just dropped on Arena, and we had pre-releases this past weekend. What? Yeah, I know, right? I've been using up all my dad jokes, my dad Western jokes on my content. But what cards excite you from the set the most? What are you building around?
The last couple of days I've just been on this, the Nathan Stewart card. I think it's the Duelist of the Mind.
Yeah,
absolute house. It was in the top 3 of my top 10 list when I did the little spoiler talk, and it's really held up to the hype, and it works so nicely in conjunction with Prof's Eidetic Memory. I've done one in every color combo that I can think of, and those will be going up on the channel shortly.
I'll be looking forward to that, because I am a Prof pilot myself. I love those decks. I've been playing Azorius, Dimir, and Esper so far. So I'll be interested to see what you cook up. That's going to be really cool.
Haven't tried Esper yet.
Yeah, I've been on Mono Green as well. I was just playing, and I encountered another content creator, Numbskull, on the ladder just before this. I was playing Mono Green. He was playing Rakdos, and it came down to game 3. It was really tight. So that was fun. There's some fun stuff. I'm trying to bring back Mono Green because it's my pet deck. But Gruul is strong right now. Boros is strong right now. That Slingshot card is I think that's going to be a meta breaker.
Potent.
Yeah, there's a lot to be excited about. So when's your next video? Where can go ahead and promote yourself? Where can people find you regularly?
Quick plug. I do once every 2 days. Because my real life job is very seasonal. We're going into the high season, so I'm going to try and juggle between real work and the channel, but I try to do at least one upload every 2 days, and I'm posting both on YouTube and on X, formerly known as Twitter.
That's right. You're pioneering into new ground there. I saw that you can dump the whole video on X, I think now. That's awesome. Hell yeah. So if people don't want to click through stuff, and they don't suppress your link because you're not taking traffic away, that's interesting. Wow. Okay.
Precisely. Okay. And it's probably going to be a lot. I think the amount of things you need to get monetized is a little higher than YouTube, but I think the reach is potentially broader. So let's see.
Absolutely.
Give it a try.
I love seeing content creators do new things in this space. I know that you primarily do a ton of best of one, but I have an appreciation for your content. I think it's awesome, and I try to translate some of your ideas if I can when I shout you out into best of 3 and try to build around what's going on there as well. So I watch your content. Big shout out. Everybody go check them out. I'm going to drop a link in the description. Thank you for coming on.
Hey, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And you guys at the Rebellion, keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. We certainly will. All right. Have a good night, man. All right. Be sure to catch MTG Brewlab on YouTube and Twitter X, as he actually uploads his full deck videos there as well. It's interesting scrolling the Twitter timeline and seeing a full 45-minute video. It's really weird. It's a weird experience. He's experimenting with that. Kudos to him for being the pioneer and going out and doing that, because I don't think anybody else in MTG is doing that.
Well, that's all the time we have for this episode of the Rebelcast. A reminder that we are still sponsor free. We depend on contributions from our community, so consider joining the Rebellion below. Our membership tiers include emotes you can use during premieres, and at the Coffee and Grinders level, you'll gain access to our constantly updated sideboard guides.
Oh yeah, we love what we do. We hope it shows. All links in the description to MTG Brewlab, the article about Arena, and our wonderful Discord community.
And until next time,
Untap,
untap, upkeep,
upkeep,
resist.
resist.